Great, so I believe we can call the meeting of the State Board to order. We have all members of the board present, and we are broadcasting live, which has been confirmed. So we will declare the quorum, and we will begin our meeting. So we will first start with if there's any additions to the agenda. Seeing no additions, we're going to now, members of the board, should have already received the minutes from the open and the closed meetings of March 10, 2022. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to either of those minutes?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else have any? If there are none, we will do one vote for the two of them. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented for both the open and the closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Great, thank you. It's unanimous. So let's move on to the administrator's report. And I might add again, as usual, we do have a written copy of the report. We would just ask each person to go through the highlights of that report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So good to see everybody. I'll start with the first section. I just wanted to highlight some of the work on redistricting since it's what we've all been doing and talking about for weeks. So now that the lines are down, the local boards are very busily updating the voter registration database to reflect the new districts. This is a really time-consuming and manual process for them. And normally it's something that would take several months that they are doing in a matter of weeks. So we are supporting them the best that we can, and they are supporting each other. And it's truly a definition of teamwork. We have updated our website with some information about redistricting and directing people there from both our webpage, and we've asked the local boards to do the same. And we've provided some text in our voter lookup website that lets voters know what information we're displaying. So right now, the information we're displaying is their current information. So that would be the lines, the plans that were in effect until this recent round. And then once all the local boards have finished updating the database, we will then update the voter lookup to show their new districts moving forward and provide text that explains that this is their new district polling place and where they can find their elected officials who will serve them through the end of the current term. So that information is all up there. And at next month's meeting, I expect we'll be able to share a whole lot more information. Hopefully, all of the work will be done on the local board side. And it's just a matter of updating the text and letting people know about where they can find their new information. And with that, I will turn it over to, I guess, Jennifer or Mary and Donna about the election reform section. Okay, so Mary, you want to highlight anything in voter registration?
I really don't have anything to highlight unless anybody has any questions.
Anybody from the board have any questions about the voter registration section? Seeing none, who's next?
I would echo Mary, but if anyone had any questions.
So Jared,
I'll go next now. So the candidate filing was very successful on April 15th at 9 o'clock. We had a lot of appointments, and the team did quite well there. We then basically had withdrawals and everything, but on the 18th, and then there was a court order that extended it to the 25th. So we just wanted to highlight that on that front there. But the filings was very successful, and it was a very smooth effort with the campaign finance team. We worked well, and thanks to the voter registration team also for for participating and helping with that to ensure that all the candidates had a very smooth and quick trip throughout the process. As you can see, I've been very busy with the public financing program there as well. It's been a robust program that has been successful in Montgomery and Howard County, and the state as well has been having a successful candidate in that position as well. And then you have my website activities and my enforcement actions as well. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but I'll move this along then to voting systems.
Anybody, any board member have any questions for campaign finance? Thank you very much. And who is doing the voting systems report?
This is Fred. I'll go ahead and do that. Shafiq wasn't able to attend today. So for the new electronic poll book, we are currently in two different phases. We're in the project initiation and planning phase, which is scheduled to end second quarter this year. And also the analysis and design phase has begun as well, which is scheduled to end the third quarter of this year. And then for a voting system replacement project, we have actually prepared, we're in the middle of preparing a letter to go out, more like a request for information on new voting systems. So we're hoping to be complete with that and sent out and have an answer by the third quarter of 2022.
Board have any questions about the voting system? Seeing none, we'll move on to the project management office.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Keith Ross, Assistant Deputy for Project Management. And I submit to you the content of many of the efforts that are undertaken, have been undertaken with the Project Management Office. For any of your questions, I will provide one update that the statewide inventory audit is above 90% now at 90.31%. We're well on the way of completing that effort for the year.
Great. Any members have questions for the project management office? Seeing none, Keith, thank you. Information security.
Art, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
No,
We can hear
yes.
you now.
Okay, great. I have submitted in the report the current status of the SBE information security program. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any board member have any questions for the information security department that has laid it out in front of you?
I would like to supplement. We have the first agenda item under information security is our new vendor for our security operations center or the managed security services. I just wanted to update you that at this morning's Board of Public Works meeting, the board did approve that contract. We wrote this obviously before and just wanted to update you that the Board of Public Works did approve that contract this morning, 3-0.
Great. Any
And
questions?
Yeah, the other information in this section is the quarterly security report that we provide to all of you. Art has put what we've been doing in the last quarter and will continue to do as we prepare for the election. And wanted to just remind everybody, this is our quarterly report that we provide you.
So based on that, if any member has any questions, you can ask that question, but it may need to be something we would have to have a closed meeting for the answer. So just wondering if anyone has any questions about the information security, the broader report that we have here. And again, if we need to get in depth, we would need to go into closed session for that, which we would do at the end. Not seeing any questions, we move on to legislation.
Hi, this is Donna Duncan. I am going to refer to Jared and Mary for any explanations to these bills, as they are the ones that have actively worked with the General Assembly in managing to eliminate some bills and work through the process. As you can see from the list that's included, from the 145, 150 that we were following initially, the list is considerably less. So Jared, Mary, if you.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Donna. I think one, I'd like to say some good news is that both the departmental bills have been passed and now we're just waiting the governor's signature. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully they'll be signed by the governor as well on that. The next signing is I believe, May 11th, I believe May 12th and May 16th are the next two signings. So hopefully those two departmental bills will be signed. And, as you remember, the first one was protecting contributor information so that they can't be used for commercial solicitation. So that was passed. And then the comprehensive enforcement actions for campaign finance was the other one. So they were both, it was a tough process to get them through, but the one was a little bit harder than the other, but we've made them through and they got through. And also to the Mayo initiative to open up ballots prior to Election Day also made it through. They have 8 days now prior to Election Day to start the canvass and move forward with that. They have the ability, there was some compromises, of course, with every type of bill, but that was a major win for I would say, Mayo. And the other initiative, a Mayo initiative that was successful, was repeal of polling place prohibitions with the sale of alcohol with them. This is most notably for Laurel Park, and that facility that Anne Arundel County wanted to use but couldn't. So now there was the General Assembly passed that, and again, we're just waiting for the governor's signature. But there is one caveat that they have to have regulations passed. So by the next board meeting, we will present some regulations on how that would occur for the use of a polling place near or in a facility that has an alcoholic license. So, so that's just I would say the major initiatives there. It was a very successful legislative session for elections, and I enjoyed working with Mary and Mayo on that throughout the process. Mary, anything?
No, just a really good team, and kudos to Katie Berry, who is Mayo's legislative liaison. It's always a pleasure working with her. And thank you, Jared.
Yeah, I'd like to add my thanks, and I know Nikki feels the same way. The team worked really, really hard this year on several projects, not only the legislation, but candidate filing deadlines, and that kept changing. And well, I don't think we had a record number of candidates filed. It certainly was a busy time, and everybody on the staff, as usual, worked together and helped each other out. And it was a really good effort in working with the local boards as well. So just my kudos to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like it was a very, very busy election season as usual. We're down to 22, though. That's a big reduction from where it started, right? Does anybody on the board have questions about the legislation that was passed or not passed? Seeing no questions, I believe that concludes the administrator's report. Let me just ask one more time. Are there any questions in general that somebody need to go back and ask a question at all about the report? Seeing none, we will consider that concluded, and we're going to move on to the Assistant Attorney General's report.
Good afternoon. I'm Adam Snyder from the Maryland Attorney General's office, filling in for the recently departed for New York, Andrea Trento. And speaking of hard work and just kind of amazing effort, I'd have to put in a word for Andrea, who, despite heading out the door, was working long hours and weekends throughout this redistricting process to, represent the state very ably and very collegially, as he always does. He's going to be dearly missed. I'm not sure I don't need to tell you that. You're going to be hard pressed to find someone to fill his shoes, but we're trying hard at that and hope to have someone in place before too long. But in the meantime, all you get is me. So I'm not going to go over in any detail the last report that Andrea drafted. In a nutshell, all of these cases are pretty much over. The only one that is the piece of litigation on here that is live is Mr. Wilson's challenge to the Washington County early voting centers. He filed his brief last week. Jim Lewis, who is going to be working with you all and the state board and staff going forward in kind of an interim basis, is handling our response to that and is reviewing the brief. But of all the pieces of litigation described in here, that's the only one that's going, that's live. There's the declaratory ruling at the end, but that's not really a piece of litigation. All the redistricting has been tied up. The WinRed case is over because the plaintiffs have indicated in their appellate filings that they're not challenging the district court's determination that it didn't have jurisdiction over Maryland. And Ms. Connors does not appear to have appealed the adverse decision rejecting her challenges to the disclosure of personalized voting information with voting lists. So there's a lot in this Attorney General's report, but most of it's good news that cases are over, with Mr. Wilson's being the one exception.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Snyder? I can tell you it's a very odd position to be in on the board and only basically not have any multiple cases at one time. So probably if there was a time for a transition to somebody new and we would have liked to have had Andrea forever, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
This would probably be that time, right? So we did a yeoman's work to get a lot of these tied up. So
Yeah,
thank you.
sure.
Are there any other questions for the Assistant Attorney General? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we move on to the approval of proposed regulations to COMAR 33.14 Public Financing.
Yes, thank you. So you have my memo here, and this is a complete, I would say, overhaul of the administration of the Public Financing Act. So it seems a lot, but basically in the last legislative session in 2021, we changed the way public financing operates in the state of Maryland. Before, it used to have a primary general distinction, and it was geared, I would say, more in line with how the federal presidential public financing program was run, which was there was an expenditure limit with a small matching program, coupled with then, if you go to the general election, a grant that you would receive, so that no fundraising would occur. This was the program in which Governor Hogan had run on successfully in 2014. Like I said, in 21, the General Assembly changed the program to be more reflective of the current public financing programs out there, which was, I would say, initiated in Montgomery County first, with a very tiered, match and a robust matching portion of it. And with that, basically there was a ton of outdated or requirements in the regulations that needed to be repealed. So this, as you can see, most of the times it was just these definitions or responsibilities or requirements were just to repeal the outdated provisions and replace them with the new requirements based upon the campaign finance law currently out there. And there is no distinction now between primary and general election. Once you're in the program, you're in the program from start to finish. And so this just basically went through all the regs that were associated with public financing and has now made them basically compliant or codified the practices necessary for the administration of the program today. And if you have any specific questions about the regs, I'll be happy to answer them. One of the things that we did add was electronic signatures, which was something that has been successful in both Howard and Montgomery counties for contribution cards that they can attach their electronic signature on it, because a lot of people do contributions via the internet through credit cards, and so all that is now done with electronic signatures to speed that along here. So so there has been sections that were no longer applicable, changes in some of the titles, and moving and keeping some numbers just in reserve, just in case we ever change the program after this iteration of it. So, but with that, I present them all to you for approval and be happy to answer any and all questions you have.
Members have questions about the quite a bit of changes to the current law, which obviously the new law requires. Does anybody have any specific questions or general questions? I'd like to ask you if is there any part of your changes that was not necessarily part of, other than maybe one that you mentioned about electronic signatures, was there anything else in there that we should focus on that is a difference that is not simply law, matching the law?
I guess the one thing was that I did put the scheduling for the filing of the campaign finance reports for matching fund requests. We've been doing this successfully now in Montgomery and now also including Howard, which is we do it twice a month. It's the first and third Tuesday of a month. But there are other months that when I looked at the calendar, when there's a required report that's due, we adjusted the schedule accordingly so that it didn't interfere with the required reports as much as in the past. So that was the one thing that I kind of adjusted. And, like I said, Montgomery and Howard, we've been doing it and it's been working fine on that. And candidates have been getting their money in a timely fashion. So they don't necessarily mind that. But overall, no, this is basically just a complete rewrite, just like they did for in the General Assembly.
Another question is, have you considered, I know, for instance, in Howard County, there were questions that you and I spoke about with compliance and what to do with an old account if you're receiving public funds. Does any of that come into play here at all?
Yes, we do have that there with, that is, I'm going to say it is under Chapter 3. So it's 33-1403, and then it is 07, prior expenditures. Basically, it talks about prepaid expenditures in C, which says like any goods, services, or campaign materials paid for by a candidate's authorized committee prior to the filing of the notice of intent may not be used after the candidate files that notice of intent. And then D has allowable transferable services, meaning the website, phones, lease, if there's a campaign office, furniture and equipment, things that basically I've already purchased and people have already known, and to associate value to that would be, I would say, very difficult to do. Not impossible, but difficult, and with minor expenses there. So basically, it has this line in the sand, which is the notice of intent. So you can't use any of your prepaid materials, especially the campaign material, so that you can't go out, buy a whole bunch of, mail pieces or lit drops, or try to purchase TV ads under the old system and then use it during your election. So basically it allows you to port over your website, your social media, your cell phone that you have, so that you don't have to go buy a new cell phone, the assumption of the office and the equipment and the furniture inside of it.
Okay, I mean, because you mentioned lease, that could be potentially a bigger number.
It
So
could be,
somebody
but
potentially
you're
like
assuming
prepaid-
lease from that point forward. So, you can't, so it's just as if the office just then said, as of this date, this campaign can no longer pay this new campaign is paying it. So.
Okay, anybody else have questions around them? I only have one more. I want to see if that generated any questions among the rest of the board. So my last question is around the electronic signatures. So here we are coming out, we're allowing electronic signatures for donations. Do you think that has any impact then on the electronic signatures we talked about before, that we were waiting for the legislature to maybe speak on when it comes to petitions and other things?
I think that this is, I think this is something that they have allowed and wanted to allow in this context, because it's an administrative convenience for public financing entities in order to get the signatures. Otherwise, in order to do this, if you did a credit card transaction, over the internet, the campaign then would have to then mail that individual contribution card for them to fill out to mail back. And that would take a lot of time and effort. Whereas the signature at that point there can be generated, that it was a secure transaction, that it was sworn by the person under oath, that they used that credit card at that particular time. And it's in line with their other objectives for Title 13, where they expressly permitted the use of electronic signatures to file campaign finance reports. So I think that this would be fine and is in line with the intent that they've established in the past.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
All right. You mentioned talking about credit cards, but electronic funds are transferred other than by credit card now. It's Zello and PayPal. Will that be taken in consideration? I mean, you're only mentioning credit cards. I don't see where you're making allowance for the other types of electronic transfer of funds.
Well, they can do that. They still have to just sign and, still have the process for a contribution card. So the electronic fund transfer is an acceptable form already for political committees. And that's for all political committees, that they can use that as long as they abide by the rules and regulations, which is that you have to have the name and address of all the contributors. It has to come from the source directly. And the one caveat for public financing now is that they have to have a contribution card that is signed, that basically says that the person is making this, that it's by an individual, that it is, they're not being reimbursed in any manner, and that they meet the requirements to be matched.
Okay, so it's follow-up after they've done it. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any other questions? I would think it would, and then we'll open it up for, because I know you want to try to get this going to match the law. I would love some kind of internal just eye on if anyone who's going to participate in this public money is doing something to game the system, so that we could answer that through further regulation down the road. If that makes sense, I would think that the remainder of the board would agree with that, that if we see something that we haven't contemplated that is being abused, that we address that forthwith.
I agree. And that's, by the way, after 14, one of the big things was I had a major rewrite of the code because at the time, no one understood debt and in carrying over things. That we worked well with the Hogan campaign at the time, and then came up with thoughtful regulations. And the same thing occurs here now. After each election cycle, I work with the stakeholders there to see what worked, what didn't work, and where the policy, I would say, has gaps, and then we try to fix those gaps with it. So yes, at the end of this election, we have one candidate who is in the program, and I'm in constant contact with them because as the campaign season heats up here, they definitely want their money a lot faster, but I still have to review it. So, but we will review it and move forward and come back with suggestions to modify it.
One of the things that pops in my head is maybe a campaign would, if they were 2 or 3 years from the actual election, but they'd already filed, and then just before they would prepay that lease, which might be $3,000 or $4,000 a month, which could be $100,000 transaction, right, over the course of 2 years of prepaying a lease. But that was a lease that they could carry forward, so that would be $100,000 that they would have an extra versus other candidates. If you see what I'm saying, something like
Yes.
that would be gaming the system and not the intention of the law or the spirit.
Correct.
So I just want to look out for stuff like that, and if we need to address that, make sure we're addressing it. So, anything else from the board? Any other questions? So the chair would entertain a motion to accept. Now, this is a Comar change, right? So this would, if approved, would then go for public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the changes to Comar as presented for Comar 33.14.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the proposed regulations to Comar 33.14 Public Financing Act.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Great. It is passed unanimously. Thank you very, very much. I believe the next thing on our agenda is the approval of replacement early voting centers for Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Caroline, Cecil, Charles, Frederick, Harford, Howard, and Worcester. And I believe PG as well is added to that. Am I right?
Yes, Prince George's was added.
So who is Donna, are you doing that?
Yes, it's going to be me, Melissa Dorsey. I'm just waiting for hi again. Waiting for David to send the pop-up that allows me to present. Thank you. Did that work? Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yes, it's done.
Great. Okay. So I apologize for the piecemeal presentations. We were just trying to get them to you as soon as possible, kind of as they came in. And as you noted, PG just got theirs done today. So I'm gonna work through the first largest presentation, if that's okay with you guys, and then move to the supplemental counties. they're all relatively straightforward. So I tried to keep them as brief as possible. The first county is going to be Anne Arundel, and they're replacing 5 of their early voting locations. The 4 of them are going to be replaced with the closest available schools. Well, I'm sorry, all 5 are going to be replaced with the closest available schools. The first 4 are libraries, and the last is the Pitt Moyer Recreation Center. Their changes are going to be for the primary only. All of the locations except for Crofton High have been used as election day polling places in the past. And Crofton High is a new high school, so that's the first time there. And the locations are between just under a mile and 2.5 miles from the previously approved locations. Lots of pictures. I had some new maps made for you guys that have the new locations on them. I think probably the most notable one would be the second one in the series, which is just the distance from the location that you approved in the past and the new location. And then we have the same maps made with the population density, the minority population, and the voter turnout. None of the counties varied really in any significant way because they're so close to the previously approved locations. And then just included some photos of each of the new locations. And then did you want to approve as we go along, or wait until we made it through all of them?
I think we should let's go through all of part 1. How's that?
Okay.
And that way we can you can close that part of the presentation. But as we won't vote each time, but I want to stop right now and ask, does any board member have any questions about the Anne Arundel County changes? Does any board member have any objections to any of the changes for Anne Arundel County? Okay, let's keep going, and then we'll vote for everything in part 1 together. Go ahead.
Great. So Caroline County is actually just reverting back to the location that they have used in the past. You had approved a new location for 2022, but this will take them back to their 2020 location, and they're going to use it for both elections. It's 0.6 miles away from the location that you had approved for 2022, and it's their only early voting center. I will scroll through the maps in case you didn't have the opportunity to review them. Again, there was nothing notable there.
Does any board member have any questions or objections to the Caroline County proposed change? Seeing none, let's keep going.
All right, so Cecil was adding an additional voting center this year, and that is now unavailable. And they're going to replace it for the primary with Cecil Arena, and they'd like to replace it with Calvert Elementary. Again, only for the primary, and it has been used as an election day polling place in the past, and they are 0.7 miles from one another.
Does any board member have any objections or questions about the Cecil County proposed change? Okay, what's next up? Is that?
That's the end of the first one.
Okay, so we have, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the polling, early voting center changes, the replacements for Anne Arundel, Caroline, and Cecil counties.
So moved.
We are moved. Is there a
Second.
second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, we are unanimously passed. So now we'll go to part 2. Is that correct?
Correct. And the first county is Charles County. They are replacing one center and they're really just moving buildings within the same location. St. Joseph's was going to use their church hall, but it's going to be replaced with their activity center. And so they are literally in the same parking lot as one another. And that's
Any
the
questions or objections to the Charles County change? Okay, we move to Frederick County.
Yep. Frederick is going to be replacing the Frederick Senior Center with Trinity Recreation Center due to the center being unavailable. They're going to change for both elections. The replacement location is 6.5 miles away from the previously used location. And their original locations that were approved by the board for 2022 did not meet the population density considerations because of the large geographic area. So this is very similar. They come close, but they're not quite there. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And that would be that map right there.
Does any board member have any questions on the Frederick County proposed changes?
No.
Move on to
Next.
Harford County.
Harford is replacing Jarrettsville Fire Hall with Jarrettsville Elementary School due to it being unavailable. The location is going to be for the primary only, and this is an election day polling location. The replacement location is 1.2 miles from the previously used early voting center. There's that map right there. Again, no notable changes on anything else.
Are there any questions to the Harford County proposed changes? Well, I guess we go to Worcester.
Yes. They're replacing their one and only early voting center. The convention center is being replaced with the preparatory school due to traffic concerns associated with holiday travel to Ocean City. This takes it off the island and puts it on the other side of the Route 90 bridge. It's going to be for the primary only, and the location's 14.5 miles away.
Okay.
And that's
Probably an hour closer to everybody with the traffic that's going to be there that time of year. Does any questions on the Worcester County move? So we had 4 counties in part 2. Am I correct? We have Charles, Frederick, Harford, and Worcester, right?
Yes.
So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the replacement early voting centers for Charles, Frederick, Harford, and Worcester counties.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There a second?
Second.
Approved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. I believe you still have some more, right?
Yeah, we've got 3 more counties left. Baltimore County is the next up. They're replacing 6 centers. 5 of the 6 are going to be only for the primary. Oregon Ridge will be replaced for both elections. They are being replaced with high schools that are close by, and I believe all of the all the replacement locations were vote centers in 2020, with the exception of the County Board of Elections that they'll be using.
Jim Carrey was wearing a mask, and
Woodlawn High is replacing Woodlawn Community Center. That's 1.3 miles away. Franklin High is replacing Reisterstown Senior Center, that's 0.4 miles away. Dundalk High is replacing Sellers Point, 1.8 miles away. Perry Hall is replacing Honeygo Community Center, it's 1.3. Carver Center for the Arts is replacing Towson. This one is only for the primary, and that's 1.2 miles away. And then the Baltimore County Board of Elections is replacing Oregon Ridge, which is 1.9 miles away.
Are there any questions from the board about the Baltimore County proposed changes to early voting centers? Which county do you have next?
Howard?
Okay,
Howard's replacing 5 for the primary. And let's see, they are, it's 4 of them were early voting centers in 2020. And then Howard High has been used as an election day polling place. And that's 3 miles from the previously approved location. I'm going to bring that map up here. Again, it didn't change significantly any of the other considerations.
okay. Are there any questions from the board about the Howard County proposed changes? Okay, I would imagine PG is the last and maybe the one that we didn't, was just done today, so I'm not sure we have it already.
Yeah, I think that Donna sent it out just early this afternoon, so you probably have not gotten to see it yet. It's just one replacement for Accokeek VFW. It's being replaced with Accokeek Academy. They're 3.5 miles away from each other, and Accokeek has been used as an election day polling location. Because it was just surveyed today, we are asking for conditional approval because it has not been approved by their county board yet.
Okay. Are there any questions about the Prince George's County proposed change? So what I think we should do is we should handle Baltimore and Howard County in one motion, and then a separate different motion for PG County since it needs conditional approval. So does anyone like to make a motion to approve the proposed replacement early voting centers for Baltimore and Howard County? So we have a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. And now the chair would entertain a motion to conditionally approve the replacement early voting center in Prince George's County. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Melissa, but that is so that they're waiting for approval from who? From the site?
From their county board, and I believe that will be presented on May 2nd, and the election director said she does not anticipate any issues with that.
Okay, so this would be.
Excuse me, you say
Yes.
the county board. Is that the county council or the county board of elections?
Board of Elections.
Oh, the board of elections hasn't approved this yet.
No, it was just surveyed this morning. We wanted to present it to you today, so we didn't have to call a special meeting to have you present it later and request conditional approval.
Okay.
So the motion, I'm sorry, Malcolm, would you like to?
No. I was trying to figure who's presenting this. I thought the board of elections was presenting this, so evidently they're not since they haven't approved it.
This would be from the staff in PG County at this point, from the election director.
Gotcha.
So the motion would be that the condition of approval for the PG County change would be for the local board of elections approval. Then it would become a full approval. Would anybody like to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we conditionally approve the Prince George's County location contingent upon the board's approval, making it final.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. So again, we are unanimous. Is that all of them? I believe it is.
It is.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on that. So we move to the declaratory rulings. I believe we have two.
Yes.
And I believe that the first one is from George Gluck. Is that correct?
That is correct. So on February 22nd, we received a petition for declaratory ruling from Mr. Gluck. And he seeks to file a declaration of intent for multiple public offices simultaneously. And it is the recommendation that the state board we issue a declaratory ruling, and that the decision to make is that the petitioner cannot file declarations of intent for multiple public offices. The memo outlines the legal rationale for that in the why it is not considered, why this is prohibited under law, and that we can just tell Mr. Gluck, no, that you cannot file, you have to file only one declaration of intent for one public office. If there's any questions about the memo or the recommendation, I'd be happy to answer that. And then I don't know if you want to do one petition at a time or discuss the second one.
Let's do one at a time, because I think
Okay.
there's, yeah. So let me open it up to the board. Does the board have any initial questions about the petition by Mr. George Gluck?
I guess I just have one question. Firstly, how could you, if the person wins both positions, how are they going to fill both of them?
Well, I guess he was going to try to seek the nomination for multiple ones, and then basically choose after the fact. He never really got through all his process about what he wants to do, but that was I think this is why you have to choose one office. You can't choose multiple offices and then hope to win one of those offices.
Yeah, okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been queried to the Assistant Attorney General, and when Andrea was with us, and that was his advice as well.
That is correct, yes.
Any other questions from the board? I think it offers a litany of problems to allow somebody to just go down and check off every ballot. I mean, every position, and then I think it would cause disorder and mayhem personally. So, especially for offices that you couldn't simultaneously hold. Let's see. We need to have a motion and vote on a motion that either you have three choices. If I'm correct, we haven't dealt with declaratory judgments while I've been on the board, but my understanding is that we can either deny them, approve them, or say we don't have jurisdiction. Is that correct?
That is correct. Right.
So I did read correctly. I do that sometimes. Yes. Yes.
So a declaratory ruling, assuming one is issued, is the record of that simply what we're doing here, and whatever statement we make, or is there an actual public document that is created as a declaratory ruling?
So we issue the memo to you is that, and then we issue a declaratory ruling to the petitioner that becomes the public document. It binds the state board and the petitioner to the facts and to the outcome of this. So once you issue a declaratory ruling on the matter, which is which is what I'm recommending, because it's within our jurisdiction to issue said ruling. But then the ruling then becomes that you can only file one declaration of intent for one public office at one time. And so then, and the memo goes out, and then we'll post that on our website as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
I
if
guess-
yes,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I guess it's only binding on the set of facts, so the specific instance. So to the extent it has precedential value, it's only for the exact individual with the exact facts.
Exactly. Yes.
Any other questions? So the motion that we would be seeking would be as a declaratory ruling that a candidate may only declare his intent to run for one office at one time. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Anybody like to make such a motion?
Oh, well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue a declaratory ruling stating that you can only run for one office at one time, that you cannot run for multiple public offices.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. So that is unanimous.
Great. Thank
So now we move to petition number 2. Mr. Marinus?
Yes, so this one here is the one where I recommend that the board not issue a declaratory ruling because it does not fall within the declaratory ruling regulations. That it basically, the question here by the petitioner, which is Delegate Marianne Lasanti, she wanted a declaratory ruling regarding the discrepancies on election boundaries that fall under election law article 4-103A, and who ruled over whether to use a map or to use the text. And since a declaratory ruling is to know how the state board would apply a regulation, an order, or a statute, this issue here about approving redistricting maps and whether to superseding the text of a redistricting legislation, if a discrepancy is discovered, this does not fall within the purview of the declaratory ruling, and therefore it's the incorrect venue, and that's why I recommend that the board not issue a declaratory ruling on this matter here for those reasons.
Any questions from the board? Yes, sure, Mr. Miller.
How would that be communicated to the petitioner? Would there be some indication that we're not the proper venue, or would we simply decline it?
No,
Decline
we
to
were
issue
telling
a
them that this is
declaratory
not the
ruling.
proper venue on that. The courts would be probably the more proper venue. And this also was, again, vetted through with Andrea prior to head off that question.
That was going to be my question. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
What would be the response to the argument, Jared, or anyone else, that we're being asked to rule like how votes would be tallied? So we're being asked to consider how at some point under the district maps that are, I guess, at issue, we are, or someone is eventually going to be certifying the election and the votes tallied. So would that'd be like the prospective action we're being asked to consider or make a decision on?
No, so this was not on whether the votes tallied for the discrepancy occurs, because that, I guess, would fall more under us because the tallying of the votes. This is basically saying which there's the map that was presented for implementation and then the text don't match up, and you should decide, and we don't decide which map if when there's a an issue on redistricting, that's not us to decide, or we don't enforce that. We just kind of put it into the system and move all the voters around here. But this was kind of an issue for the county council to address, to make sure that the map and the legislation was identical, not for us to kind of pick and choose which one we want.
So we would say the venue would be the Harford County local board to challenge
No,
our
it would
decision.
be- it would be for the county council or for the courts, which those would be the, and I believe at one point here, they are trying to resolve it through the county council.
Any other questions from the board? I mean, I understand what the question is. If it's a scary precedent, right? What if you're presented with a difference in what a text says and what the map says? What do you do? And I'm not sure that is the venue of the so for us to declare this is how you always do it. I don't know if anyone feels differently, but it seems to me that should be decided by a court or by the legislative body.
Well, the question is, what are the boundaries? We don't determine boundaries. It's either the legislative body that determines it or the court that determines it. It goes back to the legislative body because we have congressional redistricting, legislative redistricting, we have our local redistricting. And that's left up to the legislative bodies. If they can't get their act together, it's up to them to do it, or someone files suit in the court and have the court decide for them. That's not us.
Again, I'm just more talking out loud or thinking through, but couldn't it be, I mean, would there be a difference if we just declare that we are going to respect the boundaries that the local board decided, which I guess is based on the map, not the text. And so that would be our declaration. And then, I don't know, I'm assuming that's something that could be appealable also.
We don't have that authority, do we?
Well, I mean, if someone's asking how we're going to sort of whatever the formal action is that we're taking at the end of the election process is to tally votes or accept the votes and the votes for each within the district as in the map for a particular candidate. So
But it doesn't
we're saying officially, go ahead.
It doesn't get to tallying the votes. It gets to determining the boundaries of the districts. You don't even get to the tallying of the votes yet.
Well, I'm saying, well, that's how it eventually would come to us. If someone were to say, well, no, the voters, the hundreds or dozens of voters in this area in dispute, you are going to we as the board are certifying that they voted for this, or there are enough votes from people in this district for that candidate. But if that included this area in dispute, I guess that could be the action that would be challenged hypothetically.
Yeah. These are great questions. I mean, one of my things that runs through my head is what happens, okay, this is a specific set of facts, but do you set precedent or is there some other method? What would be the method that any local board would take that was overseen by a state board that would take when there is a discrepancy between a map presented to them and a text presented to them as you know, for the redistricting that happens every 10 years?
Right. Additionally, to answer your question, Mr. Williams, the other part too is you have to, the declaratory ruling binds the petitioner to the facts and the outcome here. Basically, the delegate doesn't really have, you know, necessarily a stake in this where it would bind them to how we would interpret it. You know, she's just, the question was, which one should you use, either A or B? And that's, you know, a legal determination. It doesn't bind her to, if you said, no, you have to go with the map. Well, how does that bind her to the map and the outcome of that? We've had other declaratory rulings where people have tried to bind other parties, and we've declined them as well. Notably, I think like I think like the Constitution Party wanted to prohibit, like, I think the Independent Party as a name because they found it was to be confusing. And they sought a declaratory ruling, but you can't bind third parties from this here. So like, for example, like the Gluck situation here, the previous one here was a very specific one. He was the petitioner. He wanted to come in there, file these multiple declarations of intent. And this binds him now to that he cannot. This action here doesn't bind them. And in fact, it's trying to put it on the local board on what to implement, which is not the correct venue.
I see. So if I could recap that, then the idea is that the local board makes its choice, implements it, and in a party, that thought it was wrong would then address that in either courts or the legislature, and that would be their relief.
Right. The local board had their attorney present. They made a legal determination on that front there. And if there's any sort of relief sought, or if there is a discrepancy, that, like the vice chair said, it should go to the legislative body or the courts.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? So then what you're asking for is a motion to say that we cannot rule on this because it's out of our jurisdiction.
Yes.
So then you can answer it like that. So the chair would entertain a motion as such that the petition as presented is outside of the determination. It's the wrong venue for determination.
Oh, okay, I'll step up. I move that we not issue declaratory ruling on this matter because it's not within our jurisdiction.
Or second.
Second.
All those in
Second.
favor signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so I believe that's all the declaratory rulings. We move to the approval of county bylaws.
Good afternoon. This is Tracy Hartman. I'm going to be presenting the bylaws for Baltimore County. I know, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chairman, you have been here for bylaws before, but for our newer board members, just so you know, when there is a change in the board, which is generally every 4 years, they review their bylaws. So this happened in the summer of 2019 for all the counties, but every once in a while, the board can make amendments to their bylaws, and that is what we have in front of us today. So this is just a minor edit. Baltimore County, Article 3 under meetings, Section 3.1, time and location, and subsection E, special meetings. They have added the text that there shall be notification by cell phone, text messaging, and email to all board members when calling any meetings not regularly scheduled. Acknowledgement must be received to ensure all members have been adequately notified. And this amendment was voted on and approved by the Baltimore County Board of Elections at its February meeting, which was February 23rd, and the amendment passed that board unanimously. So I do recommend that you approve this amendment. Are there any questions?
Anybody on the board have any questions about the proposed change for Baltimore County's bylaws?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't have a question. My overall question was answered in terms of why this is coming up now. And I appreciate that explanation. I hate to nitpick, but if I'm going to be part of something that's going to approve a document, I think it's best that the document be as accurate as possible. And if you look at, where is it?
There's a misspelling, and it's an egregious one. Organization. What page is it on? I'm sorry, my concentration is a little bad. As the chairman knows, I'm on the back end of a COVID, so. Article 2, header, organization of the board. Organization is misspelled.
Oh, goodness, it is. We can change that without having to.
It didn't seem to be something to be voted on. I just wanted to make sure that the document would be accurate.
Thank you. I will let them know, and the signed version that the board sends over, I will make sure that's corrected.
Thank you.
In the spirit of accuracy, footnote 9 refers to our office's Public Information Act manual, but it refers to the 10th edition published in 2007. I'm not sure what edition we're on now, but it's like 13 or 14, and it has been published within the last year or two. So that could be updated too.
Thank you.
And then similarly, in the nitpicky lawyer vein, I think where I see it now, a couple different terms that were defined, terms that were capitalized in some locations and not other locations. Article 3 for the Board of Canvassers, I guess 3.2, just to capitalize that. Or it's referred to as the board and I think the Board of Canvassers. Well, I guess it's to use the board is referring to the Board of Elections, but then the Board of Canvassers is a separate entity for purposes of the meeting, so it's capitalized.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where is that? You said under 3.2?
3.2A1.
Okay. Yep. You are correct there.
I have a question as to the wording here under the special meetings. They indicated there should be notification by cell phone, text messaging, and email. Now, I don't know the makeup of their board, but you're assuming everyone has a cell phone and everyone has a computer, but they may have one or the other, but not both. But they say they must have text messaging and email. So that means they must receive a text message on their phone and an email, either on the phone or an email on the computer. And I suppose they have a computer, but they do not have a cell phone. They cannot receive a text message, but they can receive an email.
Well, I can't speak for their board, but my assumption is that if you send out the notification 2 ways, you're covering your bases.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is everyone may not have both those methods, and it states that there must be notification by text messaging and email. So both of them must be sent regardless if the person has the capability of receiving one or the other.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I guess I would suggest that these bylaws bind the current board members, and since they approved this at the board level, that they all must have agreed to this and must have the ability to receive information in both of the ways.
Okay. I'm speaking from my generation. I'm around a group of people that some of them don't have some of these things. So
No, understand, but I think with these 5 or 7 people, if they've all agreed to it, I think it would be safe.
They have it. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Any other questions or more typos?
Section 4.6A is another just capitalization.
So we have 4 minor non-substantive changes. So I guess if based on those changes, is there a motion to approve the bylaws based on the non-substantive changes being corrected?
So moved.
Moved.
There a second?
Second.
Moved and
you.
seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Unanimous.
We're gonna do our bylaws along those lines while it's top of mind.
Say that again?
Do we need to do our bylaws as well?
Yes, we do. We brought that up at the last meeting that it's supposed to be done every year. And we
So
have
should
not done that
hold
yet.
ourselves to account as well, yes.
So if I could provide a timeline for that. So we have, since the last board meeting, updated the delegation of duties document that accompanies the bylaws and is incorporated by reference into that. So we have updated it from, there were a lot of changes based on legislation last year. So we have that under review, and the plan would be to present the bylaws and the updated delegation of duties document at the next board meeting.
Great. Thank you, both Mr. Williams and Ms. Charleston. Thank you for the question and the answer. We needed both of them. Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? So let's move on. Is there any old business? Seeing none, I do believe under new business, we have a last minute approved speaker. Is there any other new business before we bring the speaker in? So this is our only piece of new business. Is that speaker available?
David, if you could unmute Nicole Hanson-Mundell, please, that would be great.
How you doing? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll sign out of my phone. I'm sorry. This is a new system for me.
Very bad echo.
Nicole, is there a place that you can go that's a little quieter?
Not sure that she might have a computer and a phone on at the same time. Maybe it's echoing.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, that's
thank you.
much better. Thank
Okay.
you.
My apologies. Yes, I had a phone, a computer and cell phone. I heard Mr. Malcolm mention those two types of options, and perfect case study. Am I available by visual or just audio as a visitor?
Just audio.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Nicole Hanson, Executive Director of Harford Justice, one of the leading orgs that have been working really closely with SBE and work with very vulnerable populations that are formerly incarcerated people. Some of our proposed changes, and also come with the support of the ACLU, Common Cause Maryland, the Expanded Ballot Vote Coalition. So a slew of voting advocates who've been supporting this work for a number of years. We have some proposed changes to the voter registration form, paper, and PDF online. I have a screenshot, and I hope you all have access to the proposed changes, where you see the screenshot of the current language on the form. So at the top, it has Maryland voter registration application, and it lists, to register, you must. And we have some proposed edits because it can get really convoluted with the language around individuals who have the right to vote that have felony convictions, right? Now that you are out of prison, you can vote. We're still working on educating everybody about that, but we appreciate this board for making this a priority. So the proposed edits are: to register, you must. 1, be a U.S. citizen, we know that. Be a Maryland resident, we know that. Be at least 16 years old, we know that. Not be under guardianship for mentally disability, or if you are, you have not been found by the court to be unable to communicate a desire to vote. We understand that. Not have been convicted of buying and selling votes. We understand that. not be currently serving a sentence of imprisonment or a felony conviction. It's really important for people to understand that, one, if you're out of prison, it does not matter how many felonies you have. It doesn't matter if you're on probation and parole. The law says that you can vote, period. Now, proposed changes to the online voter registration. We have a screenshot of the current language on the online system. If you go down to the bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's where it gets tricky. When it says, under the penalty of perjury, I hereby swear or affirm the required. And we go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet. One of the following is true, right? I have not been convicted of a felony. I have been convicted of a felony, but I have completed serving a court-ordered sentence of imprisonment. Our proposed edit on that is, under the penalty of perjury, I hereby swear or affirm, I am a U.S. citizen, we know that. I am the Maryland resident, we understand that. I am at least 16 years old, we understand that. I have not been convicted of buying or selling votes, that is clear. You want to scratch out the words, one of the following is true. You want to scratch out, I have not been convicted of a felony. You want to scratch out, I have not been convicted of a felony, but I have completed serving a court-ordered sentence of imprisonment. And we wanted to simply say, I am not currently serving a sentence of imprisonment or a felony conviction. Period. And what that helps, it helps all of us, because for folks, who are sitting in our jails pre-trial, they too have the right to vote, because they have not been convicted of anything. They just may have gotten locked up because of, a traffic offense or something. They had not been convicted of that crime under the law. They are pre-trial, so they too are eligible to vote. And so if we make this language very simple for folks, we won't have the type of confusion we have, where we have, deltas and sigmas and thetas, they're doing voter registration and they're giving people the wrong information. We want to be able to work with these groups and make sure they're giving the right information to our population. You have any questions, Mr. Adam? You look a little interested.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. I would like to open it up for anybody on the board has any questions for Ms. Nicole Hansen. No questions at all?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
No, let Mr. Williams go first.
No, I was just saying, if you give me a minute, I'm looking up like the website, just look what shows up to me. So you can go ahead.
Thank you, Justin.
Mr. Chairman and our speaker, I guess my question, anytime we're being asked to make a specific change like this, where do we have evidence of a real problem? And I realize that could be a very amorphous question, but what is the origins of why we need to make this change and make it now?
Is that a question for me, Ms. Guy?
Yes, that would be a question for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A lot of the evidence for why we need to make this change is this law has been in existence since 2015, Ms. Scott. And even today, most Marylanders do not know that they have the right to vote if they have a felony. Even today, agencies like probation and parole agents are still telling their clients that they don't have the right to vote. As of today, many people in our local agencies still don't know that people have the right to vote. The why is because there's a lot of words, and I just got finished listening to you all talk about, words and trying to simplify things, and you're dealing with different age groups and populations, right? And so if you simplify language, you leave no room open to be confused. And what we've seen in the past with the website in the sky is that the different languages, the different, if you did this and if you had that, it really hinders one ability to process if they even have the right to vote. And then what it does is it causes that person to maybe go ask somebody who just don't even know the law. So what we're asking as voting advocates and formerly incarcerated people who actually vote and engage and are very civically involved, is that you simplify the language. And the evidence shows, I invite you, Ms. Scott, to go visit some places with me where people are doing voter registration, and we can ask them a simple question. What are you saying when one asks you, how does individuals with criminal records, what's their ability to vote? And I'm almost certain, Ms. Scott, that many people are still very, very confused. Just got off the phone yesterday with very smart, brilliant mind, and they were doing statewide voter registration work. And I asked the brother, hey, what are you saying to people that have a criminal record? And he says, oh yeah, I tell them that once they have finished their probation and once they have finished paying their fines and fees, they can vote. And that just made my heart sink. It made my stomach boil because that was incorrect information. And so I'm just asking you all, as this body who I see is very, very committed to making sure that the laws are applied equitably and the right way, as this body who oversees all sorts of voting policies and laws, that I ask you to pay special attention to this population today. And this is a population of people who have made some mistakes, rebuilt their lives, and they deserve to also be civically involved and decide who represents them. They are a voting base, a tax base, they're contributing to our community. And I am one of them, Ms. Scott. I'm an executive director of a nonprofit organization. Over 5 years, I've been working here, and 10 years working in working in policy. I have an 18-year-old daughter coming out of high school, and a 10-year-old daughter coming out of middle school, and I have a criminal record myself. And I want to make sure that people like me know that they have the right to vote.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. And I am sympathetic to this issue in terms of making sure that any language that is public facing is clear and certainly enhances and doesn't diminish the opportunity for anyone who's eligible to vote. I guess my only reservation isn't so much the language. My reservation is, part of it is, I often have this question. I'm assuming we have authority to do what's being asked here. And then secondly, I know that this is more of a comment. I know that when we were required to make some changes to the, I believe it was the mail-in ballot form, there was a great deal of review of that document. I believe the University of Baltimore actually took a look at the language that we would be using, because we were talking about a document that would be public facing, public would be using it, it had to be vetted by linguists, for lack of a better word. So I think my reservation here would be more, is this something that we have the authority to make a change? And two, if we were going to make a change, is this the right language to be adopted in light of the concerns that are being expressed. And I don't say that to diminish the words that you've put together, Nicole. I just want to make sure that if we were going to make a change, that we would be making a change
the right
that would be the right change.
No, I totally understand. And that document that you all reviewed, probably was in 2020. It was myself and a couple other advocates who had worked with this body and produced those documents, those very documents that you all approved and looked and sent to the UB. We did that. Only incarcerated people drafted that packet that you all now send. That was drafted by the people and then looked over by Nikki and then UB. And I think Ms. Mary and Nikki can tell you the work that we put into that. Let me explain something to you really quickly. When you look at the line that says, I have not been convicted of a felony, that's actually not true. You can vote if you have not been convicted of a felony, because your felony, just because you have a felony, does not prohibit you from voting. If you look at the line that says, I've not been convicted of a felony, but I have completed serving a court-ordered sentence of imprisonment. Well, imprisonment also includes being on probation and parole. But that's also not true, right? Because even if I'm home and I'm free and I'm on probation and parole, I have the right to vote. And so that's why you ought to strike that language, because to a certain degree, it could be confusing. It's the only people who don't have the right to vote today are people who are in jail on a felony conviction. They are the only people in the great state of Maryland who can't legally vote. And so that's why we came up with, I am not currently serving a sentence of imprisonment for a felony conviction. That's the simplest way, because that's the truth.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, along the lines, I guess, and Nicole, for your reference, I think all of the board members are new since 2020, or at least most of us are. So we weren't aware of the process. I looked at the law that allows for the people with the felony conviction to vote, and I see that the language is the same as what the statute says. And so I kind of share what Sky mentioned, her sentiment. I'm always open to simplifying language and making it more readable. I guess I was wondering if like happened in 2020 when this language was crafted with your help, then like how did it come to be that the language that we're using currently is on documents, if you know?
Well, what I feel like is with any piece of policy, you have to keep going back and making it better, right? It's never perfect, when you do it. You gotta go back, gotta implement, you gotta see what agencies are doing, you gotta see what Department of Corrections are doing. You gotta, test it out with the people and the community, and based on that analysis, it's confusing. Someone is sitting in jail pre-trial and they've had a prior felony conviction in the past. They could feel like, oh no, I can't vote. Or, the language again, completed serving a court-ordered sentence in their minds. Oh, I haven't completed because I'm still on probation. Oh, shucks, I can't vote. And so we don't, I don't know if I'm answering your question, Justin.
Well, it's more my question was just like, was there wordsmithing and consideration in 2020, or is this?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we've been working with the board for a while, just recommending different changes. Yes, we have. We've been doing that. I'm sure we.
So
have.
was there a change from 2016 to 2020 to?
No, I think Miss Murray did make some changes. I think Miss Mary did, because Miss Mary had been working with us for a while and trying to accommodate us, but also having to come to this body and get the full approval. So I think this body, not you all, but I know that Miss Mary at least has been receiving our emails, receiving our correspondence, and been trying to communicate our concerns for a number of years. I can definitely say that. So there has been attempts by this coalition and Miss Mary, who's your director of voter registration division. She has been receiving those emails from us, and we have been trying to get, kind of through to the prior body that some of these the language is a little confusing, and we want to simplify it. So there has been some recommendations in the past, Justin, definitely.
Mr. Chairman, may I try and bring some closure here? It's evident that when documents and instructions are written, sometimes you don't know the impact that it has until it's gotten out there to the public and how they react to it. This is done in a number of events. And looking at this presentation here, I would like to try and make a recommendation. I don't know how the rest of you may feel, is that we allow the staff to look at this, wordsmith it, whatever the case might be, work with you. You mind if I call you Nicole? I can't remember your last name.
Sure, no problem, Mr. Malcolm. Yes.
Okay, and work with the Attorney General's office to come up with the proper language and determine what is, because what we're dealing with are a lot of people, perhaps their educational level, because this is one reason why they may be incarcerated to begin with. I'm not trying to make assumptions.
No.
And we want to make the language as clear as possible, because but I think between the staff working with it and the Attorney General, whomever we may be getting, no reflection on you, it's just not.
But Mr. Malcolm, what's the timeline on that? You all are determining a new voting a month, July is what we're hearing, that folks are
well,
primary. Are you saying that this
I
this
don't know.
election will go by?
I don't know. That's up to how fast the staff and they can put something together. I have no way of knowing, but my solution is, if we want to do this, we want to do it correctly, not rush it and make another mistake and have to recorrect that. It may be, it may not be done tomorrow. It may take a while to do it correctly. Just like this situation we did with the application for a mail-in ballot, how we went over that numerous times before we got it.
I know, but Mr. Malcolm, we've been waiting since 2015.
Well,
we have emails to show. Yes, we've been making recommendations for years on how to make this wording simplified, Mr. Malcolm. So I get it. I get the legally. Are you open to at least, as the board member, giving a timeline to the public on how much time do you think this should take? The staff already has a lot of other things they're doing.
Let me jump in real quick. And let me say, Ms. Nicole, I hear you as a individual member as well. And I'm sympathetic to the idea. And one thing you said, though, you had said the way it's worded now, where it says, but I have completed serving a court-ordered sentence, and that implied something that wasn't true. And I'm having trouble finding distinction for the proposed wording that says I am not currently serving a sentence of imprisonment. If a sentence of imprisonment includes
for a felony
probation and
conviction. For a felony conviction, that's simple.
Right, but if that sentence of imprisonment, as you said, includes technically probation and parole, but then the law allows for voting, I'm not sure that your wording is doing you the best justice in what you're trying to do. So I would agree with Mr. Funn that I'm open to changes that simplify and best lay out what the law says. I'm completely open to that. I personally would like to see a copy of the law so I understand it. I'd like to see input from the Attorney General to make sure we're in compliance. I'd also like to see our staff take a shot at what they think is correct and the best wording that meets both the AG and the legal requirements of the law. And if we need outside advice, if the staff believes we need some outside advice on best how to word it, and I know this is an election time, so my question right now is to the staff, is that what kind of time frame to get that information together and take a look at this is reasonable? I'm not sure.
Maybe they're all muted.
Yeah, I was muted. I was muted. I mean, we can certainly look at this. And Nicole's correct. We have worked with her in the past. We did make the change back in 2016 when the law changed. We did work with the advocates and they helped us wordsmith. And at that time, I think that was the best verbiage that the advocates came up with. And as we evolve and get the education out there, then it could probably be wordsmith. I do want to make everybody aware, it does not just impact SBE, our website. I've got paper applications that we disseminate, and then I have other automatic registration agencies that would have to be able to program or change this verbiage. They're great. Those agencies are great working with me, but I know it's just not flipping a switch.
Yeah. I know our recommendation was just like the online system, but you're right, Ms. Mary.
So stage one, my question is, if we're not to the change yet, we're to how long is reasonable based on the amount of work that SB has right now to work with the Attorney General and come up with a staff recommendation and decide if we need outside input for that. I mean, when would we be able to address this? That's reasonable. I know that, boy, everybody in elections, especially the SB staff, we're so happy. We're so blessed to have you all. And I know how much work there is. I'm just asking when is reasonable to look at that.
Is it possible to just change the online language? Because the online language, no, Ms. Mary?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to bring this to closure. I would like to see if the board would entertain the idea of having the staff for the next meeting come up with a timeline of what they think and recommendations of how to move forward. Is that fair?
Like 30 days from now? Okay.
Or less.
I'm asking the board, yeah.
Does
Does everyone?
yes. Yeah,
Does
that
that make
makes
sense to the other members of the board?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think we would make any decision that would impact going forward without input from the staff, input from the Attorney General's office, and seeing the recommendations of those that are election professionals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Is everybody on the board?
That's similar to my inclination, and to the extent that, again, I'm sympathetic to making things simpler, but I don't want to trigger an unintended consequence by being like putting language in that's outside of the statute language. And I would prefer staff availability and time to be put towards making sure the election and the primary runs as smooth as possible. And then maybe if that means this has to wait until either after the primary or if after the general election, I think that's where my view is for like priorities.
So if there's a consensus among the board here, I don't think that there's something we need to necessarily vote on here, but that we're not saying to have everything together by the next meeting, but if the staff just has some sort of timeline on what's reasonable to look at this, that we could look at that at the next meeting, it would come up under an agenda item, and we could just see what our process would be, and start looking at the law and seeing what getting input from the Attorney General, things like that. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, we'll come up on the old business at the next meeting.
Sounds good. Sometimes they move to agenda items from old business, it seems, but that, yeah, sure. So, thank you. Mrs. Nicole Hanson, we really appreciate you coming in and addressing it. I think it's a reasonable request, and it's something that we will absolutely be looking at. We'll bring it up again in the next meeting, and we'll see how we can march through. So thank you.
Thank you all for your commitment on this issue. I'm so delighted that this body is beginning to be interested. I'm happy that we've been able to work with Nikki and Ms. Mary over the last 2 years to really dive deep into this issue. And I look forward to your commitment. The public is looking forward to your commitment. There's over 50, 60,000 people right now or more that is impacted by this timeline. And these are people who deserve to be civically involved. So we'll be standing by waiting for your timeline. And we'll continue to work with Ms. Nikki and Ms. Mary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's any other new business? Let me just verify that. Seeing none, let's look. Is there any disclosure of campaign contributions? No disclosure. Let's schedule the next meeting. The next meeting would normally be May 26th. I have a conflict that day. How does everybody else? Could we? What we did this month on Wednesday? Would Wednesday the 25th work for everybody of that week?
I'm out of the state that day, but if we're meeting again by Zoom, I think my schedule can probably accommodate a meeting that Wednesday. I can't on the 26th like you, Mr. Chairman, but I could on the 25th.
Okay, so that's 2 votes for the 25th, 2 o'clock. Does that work for our other board members?
Well, since you guys accommodated me, this month to move it to Wednesday instead of having it Thursday, since I wouldn't be available, I'll go along with it.
Mr. Chairman, it's Linda.
Yes, Linda.
I was planning on taking the 25th off. That's commencement of the Naval Academy, and that's the day the Blue Angels fly. And I normally try to take that day off. You can proceed without me if you wish.
Well, I'm also happy to look at another at a different day, including Tuesday, if that works for the other members.
Tuesday is not good for me.
Okay.
How about the following week, June the 2nd?
The week of the 2nd. Are you thinking like Thursday the 5th? Is that what you're thinking? Or Wednesday the 4th? I can do either day.
I'm looking at June 2nd.
Oh, sorry. You'd think I would be smart enough to move ahead to the following month. So June the 2nd is a Thursday. That would work for me. How about the other board members?
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That day works for me.
Okay. So Thursday, June 2nd at 2 p.m. seems to be the consensus. So that is the next meeting, June 2nd, Thursday, June 2nd, 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Great. Now, I do not believe we need to move into closed session. Isn't that correct? I think we will not need a closed session today. So what that means is that unless there's anything that I have missed, and I'm happy to be challenged on that if there is something I missed, but unless that is a fact, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We treat one of them as a move and one of them as a second. All those in favor signify by saying, by raising your hand. And we are officially adjourned. Thank you very much to everybody. We appreciate the staff as always, and our speaker and the Attorney General Mr. Snyder for being with us, and all the board members. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all next month or June.